Hello, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com, and I'm back with another video for you. Today is a demo strategies video, an everyday language facilitation tools for success video, where I am going to be sharing one of the most successful tools that you can use in your language facilitation journey, and that is how to use signs and gestures to facilitate speech, or spoken language, as I like to call it. So, as I said, my name is Marcy Melzer, and I know a lot about sign language. I learned sign language way back when I was 12 years old. And I've been using sign language in my career as a speech therapist to help people change from the nonverbal communication, the gestures, all the kinds of things that people use when they are pre-verbal to communicate, and shift and move all of those things, the nonverbal communication behaviors. Some of them are really specific, like signs and gestures, and some of them are less specific, like crying and screaming, right? But they're all nonverbal communications. And the more specific that nonverbal communication behavior gets, the better it can be as a tool to help your child make the shift and give up those nonverbal communication ideas that they have. I communicate by grabbing my parent. I communicate by, they get a mindset into I am a nonverbal communicator. And the whole point of using these signs and gestures is to help your child move into a space where they don't need them. They use them as their own tool to help with their communication, but they don't rely on them anymore because they're not enough. Because what happens with spoken language, and when you use signs and gestures with your spoken language facilitation, is you're showing your child how to make the transition by helping them understand the expanded spoken language that they need better, by giving them a visual hint, because all nonverbal people are going to use their eyes more than their ears to communicate. That's what happens with deaf people, right? They can't use their ears to communicate. They have to use their eyes. So they made up a whole language that enables people to be able to use their eyes only, and their hands, of course, to communicate and understand what people are communicating. They can use their eyes only to understand exact messages that other people are communicating to them. Now, of course, if you're watching this video, you don't want to teach your child another nonverbal language. You want to teach them how to use spoken language, speech, with everybody. And so what I'm going to do on this video is I'm going to give you 5 strategies. We're going to work through them together, and I'm going to demo how you can use your strategies, your gestures and signs to help your child get started talking. So, by the way, please like this video. It always helps the algorithm go out. Like I said, everybody says it, just please like this video. Like it right now, just so you forget. Thanks anyway. All right, let's get into these strategies. Let me pull up, because of course I have some graphics for you. And we're going to start out with the first strategy, which is kind of actually a pre-strategy, because just like I was just discussing, the idea here is to magnify and take advantage, right, of your child, or this, it doesn't matter how old this person is, because we're going to talk about a question I have from a parent who has a person in their 20s, a child in their 20s, who is working with nonverbal communication. And we're going to talk about how that person, even in their 20s, can help your child. They're always kids. Even my kids are in their 20s, and I call them kids. But anyone, you can help anyone expand their spoken language with this strategy, okay? So the first one is a pre-strategy to remind your child that you are actually going to use a visual aid to communicate with them. And this gets them ready to not just, and this is also a very good strategy if your child's not a very good listener. Most late talkers are not very good listeners, right? They're not using their ears, they're using their eyes instead, we said. So the first strategy is right here, and it is to try some physical touch, just any physical touch before you talk. Try to touch your child before you talk, before you give the sign, before you say the language model. So what you want to do is, just like this little girl up here on the left, she's just touching her mom to get her attention. Her mom's looking on her own device. The child wants her to look at her, and she reaches out and touches her mom. And automatically, because the child's touching the mom, she's looking to make some fleeting eye contact. Fleeting eye contact is very important to make sure that your child is listening. And all three of these moms are generating eye contact. Even with tiny babies, just giving them big kisses, they look at you, right? That's why we do it. We do it because we love them, but because we want them. As soon as we give them a kiss, even a nonverbal baby will engage with you and look with you when you physically touch them. And here's a toddler who's in their own world doing their thing, and the person behind them is bringing some physical touch up behind the child, some gentle, fun play with a little toy on their back to get a little bit of physical touch. And that's going to help sort of make the alert, turn on the listening, the visual listening, right? Because we're talking about gestures and signs that you are intending to use as a communication message, right? And you're encouraging your child to change their nonverbal communication messages, whether they're gestures, signs, screaming, whatever it is, into speech. That's the process. So first we get their attention by touching them and having them look. And then we move into the second one. And this one is the most important one, I think. And literally the strategy that everybody can use today. Look at me with my hands. Because I just started with sign language. My head even wants my hands to move because I was previously using my sign with my speech. It automatically triggers our brain to want to facilitate spoken language. That's the whole point of the neurological reason that people talk with their hands. It literally helps neurologically make the connections, build the neural pathways in the spoken language development system. This movement with your hands, just moving your hands, like we talk about kids jumping or flapping or walking on their toes, and the gestures they make with their hands have a lot more meaning than you think. It really helps them move and keep those ideas flowing. Physiologically, they see it because remember, they've been looking at their ideas. They've been thinking about visual images. And you're trying to turn all of that internal thought, bring it out into the world. That's why my mission is helping parents teach these late talking kids to bring their messages out of their heads. They're all super smart. They're all thinking about lots of things. And you as the parent are the one that's going to know what these are, what these things they're thinking about are. Okay. So, hey, Rima. Hey, Sunita. Oh, great. Yeah, visual listening. That's what it is. It's all about this visual listening. And that's what we're triggering here. Because what we need more with language facilitation is we need more listening, more auditory listening, because that's what changes the visual structures that your kids are thinking, the visual ideas that your kids are thinking, and turns them into the spoken language that they need to share those visual ideas with the world, right? Okay, let's get into this number two. Like I said, the most important number two is the easiest strategy ever, right? It's literally to just use common signs and gestures that have real meaning, okay? The same meaning, right? And you use them during your everyday language models. So while you are saying, come over here, use this finger crookie gesture while you're saying, that's not the thing I want you to climb on, right? That's what you want to do. You want to use this okay. All of these things have meaning. Even this touching your wrist, that it's not time for you to do this right now. Let your kids watch you waving as you talk to people. When you say, is it okay for us to go whatever, because you're working through your whatever, use that okay symbol, just like Rima did in her comment there on Facebook. The hand out for requesting. That's a number one strategy for me. So what you're going to do is, how this looks in your life is think about all the times, the little 5-second, these are the 5 to 10 second to 20 second little language facilitation opportunities you have all day, every day. As you direct your child around, as they come to you, as you tell them these things, give me that thing. Think about using your hands a little bit more descriptively descriptively. And when you use them more descriptively, then you use the signs that everybody understands, like eat. It's time to eat now. That's okay. You don't have to say, it's time to eat now, because you don't want your child to string together 3 separate visual ideas. You want them to bring one whole sentence visual idea. And remember, this is the strategy. You're going to hear the strategy again later. When you are modeling and using a sign that you know your child knows, eat, for example, it never comes out of your mouth in one word at the same time. First of all, you never sign by itself. You always sign paired with a full, complete, grammatically correct sentence. Full, complete sentence with every single sign. Even if your child knows 90 signs, they know cookie, they know give me, they know mama, they know how to label ball, whatever they learned in their therapy or whatever. Even though they learned them to label as a single word, just like they learned, kids who learn to speak, learn to label things with single words. Your language models, just like in any kind of circumstance with language facilitation, are always ahead of what your child knows, the next level up, always with a complete sentence that is age appropriate for your child. So what it looks like is, come here. I want you to come with me to go to the bedroom, right? These are just pointing gestures, right? If it's a sign, come on, come with me. It's time to eat, right? Out of my mouth are coming, please come with me. Please come with mama. It's time for Joey to go with daddy to get a bath right now. And you know the sign for bath, because that's the thing your child loves, right? And so they might catch bath. Wait, she said bath. But at the same time, they're looking at you because you have visually provided them with something that relates. Hey, that's a good idea. Their ideas, remember, are visual. You're giving them a related to their visual idea. So Priya says, is sign language needed when kids are already talking 2-word sentences? So Priya, here's the thing. You can use these signs as well as talking. In fact, like I said, I never stop doing them. I can't shut it off. My hands don't stop moving. So signs are good to use when you use them this way, when you use them as an enhancement to your child. So if your child is using 2-word sentences, that 2-word sentences like mama milk, my milk, give milk, come mama, mama shoe, whatever those things are, you're going to want to expand those into a longer sentence. And so what you do is you add on a visual cue for the thing that's missing. You want mama, because then maybe he's not saying mama. He's just saying give shoes. You want mama to give shoes. And so that gesture of this is mama paired with the 2-word sentence give shoes expands that conversational idea, which is exactly what your child is saying. I want mama to give me shoes when they say give shoes. Come mama. You want mama to come to the bedroom. You want mama to go to eat. You want mama to come and play. Play ball. Play bear. You want mama to come read a book. You want mama to catch your favorite video, right? So these are gestures that look like the thing that, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I want, but I don't know how to say, select my favorite video. You want me to swipe it. See how I'm saying what I'm doing at the same time? There's no gesture sign for swipe, but this is the universal. Everybody knows swipe, right? It's its own sign. Swipe to the left, swipe to the right. I mean, we can have a whole nonverbal conversation in sign language about swiping. Your child knows these things. things. And they're thinking it because they know visually what it is. That's why it's the universal sign, because it's the action, the actual action. That's why eat looks like this. It's the actual action of putting food in your mouth. Eat couldn't look like anything else, because eating involves your mouth. It wouldn't involve any other part of your body. It wouldn't make sense, right? All of these things make super sense. So, hey, Janag, good morning. Hi, Priya. Thanks for saying hi, everybody. That's so sweet. So I hope you understand that number 2 point is not just, remember, these tips, this is everyday language facilitation for everybody, whether your child is saying nothing or your child is saying sentences. Even if they're not conversational with you, these gestures are going to help you get a better visual listening, just kind of like we talked about, okay? Let's move on and get into the next one, because this is a really helpful, important thing for you to see too. All right, here. What you're going to do now is you're going to really, because most kids who are late talking and at those single word, 2-word phrase phases, or the needs-based language phases, this is where they get held up, is when they start using gestures like they might be talking, but they still flap their hands when they're upset, or they run around when they're angry, or they hit you or bite you or do these things. Look at these people doing these things. They're all feeling a certain way, right? This guy on the right says, I did it. This mommy here says, I need some peace right now, right? This one over here in the middle says, uh-oh, we're late for whatever, or the store was closed when we got here, or oh, there's something out of our control. What are we going to do? And this little guy says, no, don't stop. Don't do that anymore, right? These are emotional things. This guy says, I am so angry with you. That makes me angry when you take my toys away, right? All of that. And then this guy up here says, oh man, I don't even understand what is going on. But look at their gestures are so clear to see, right? You and I can pick them out just by watching these cartoons. And you can see these gestures when you see them in your child, and you feel these things yourself all the time. So you want to really, if your child is not using needs-based language, the point here is not about the gesture. We're doing the gesture anyway. The point here is when you do the gesture, make the emotional statement, the spoken language emotional statement, the whole sentence about, wow, I am really feeling this frustration. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe we have to wait again. You know, we're the last one in line, or I've got an ouchie, I have to go to the dentist, or, you know, another bill in the mail. Who knows what it is? You're showing your child these emotions. You can't help it. We can't help it. That's why kids who are late talking, who have needs-based language, are using gestures still for their emotions. It always happens. This is the conversational language that you're able to facilitate in this moment with these sentences that are appropriate for your child's situation. When they take a toy and chuck it, or stomp their foot, or do something like that, that's your opportunity. We're going to get to that strategy about modeling an emotional response to that behavior, that communication behavior. Wow. You are really upset that you didn't win the game. Winning the game is no fun for you. That's not nice. It wasn't nice when that happened. And you see the emotion, feel the emotion that I'm talking about? It pairs those gestures that you see, those things that your kids will do, because they are already doing them. And so are you. So are you. So don't miss. These are opportunities, golden egg opportunities. Every time your child comes to you wanting something, every time your child comes to you explaining their idea, explaining their whatever. Hi, DK. Anytime that happens, you have the opportunity right then and there, 10 seconds at a time, 20 seconds at a time, to show them the words, oh, you really are trying to tell me XYZ. Or, oh my goodness, we're so excited. Let's talk about how to talk about how we're excited. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about, my goodness, I've never tasted ice cream so sweet. It's so cold, I can't even feel my fingers, but I want to try again, right? All of those excitements, what are they thinking? What are those visual images? Bring it out. You're so cold. Oh my goodness, you're so cold. You know, you're not the one that's cold. You weren't in the pool till your lips turned blue. The kid was. But they got out, and you're emulating with a gesture what they are feeling, what they are experiencing. It's the experience of the experience, the presence, the connection with your child. This is what enables you to make the gestures naturally. You're gonna do it naturally. Look at me. I can't keep my hands still. You'll do the same thing. We start talking about, oh no, I'm thinking about, you can't help it. I wonder, shh. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, I'm so worried. You can't help but making gestures. Make sure when, catch yourself, find yourself, watch each other, watch your partner. Watch the other caregivers. What gestures are they using? And then you can do that. So here's the next strategy. We're going to get into it. We got 2 more. The last one is where we're getting into the main one, where I'm going to talk about all these things that I've been talking about. No, but you got to do this one first. This is the one that everybody is probably already doing, but you can double down and do. All right, let's move into it. All right, let's see. This is how you include your gestures and directions, of course, to facilitate faster learning, right? Anytime you include a gesture, you direct your child's visual focus to the place you want it. Mommy up here, she wants her child to look at her hair. She's looking at mommy to see, am I doing it right? This is the kind of engagement you want to get listening, because listening and paying attention and doing what you do and trying it for myself, that's what learning, that's what facilitates learning. But when you have your gestures with your directions, do it this way. Watch right here. Touch this one. It's right here on the map. Let me hold your hand. It's not doing it for them. These are facilitating a visual aid. That's basically what you're doing here. This strategy is just creating your own visual aid for your teaching, just like I've done with these slides, right? I give you something to look at that you can remember your history learning. And then you combine your history learning with the experience. Again, we're talking about the experience that we're having right now. As you compare that with your everyday learning to move into the future. This is how we evolve this skill, this thing we're learning. Because next time, you won't have to look so carefully. You'll know because you're looking carefully now, and you're going to learn it. And next time, we'll review and evolve it then. Watch me. Now we're going to, like that guy was, and I'm going to show you how to tie the worm on all by yourself. First, watch me do it, then I'm going to do it for you. These are the visual aids that are necessary and that you're already using. So think about expanding them to the things that you're teaching on the fly and double down on those gestures. Let's say you are brushing teeth and, you're practicing that skill. And your child's not very good at it, right? They miss the spots. You want to talk about specifically what you're doing with repetitive activity and show them again. I hold the toothbrush like this. Watch me. I'm going to rub it. Rubby, 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 rub. Scrubby, 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 scrub. Do it like this. Watch me like that. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Do, do, do. Blah, 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 blah. All these gestures. All these demos, all these little things you do with your hand, even pantomime, right? Brushy, brushy, brush. I'm not even holding a toothbrush. You know exactly what I'm talking about because I'm saying it. And you understand the language. And it's not that your child doesn't understand you at all. So it's very, very important, again, that you always are talking about your current situation. Don't just do it. Or don't just say it. You have to do it and say it simultaneously. And in the sign language world, that's called total communication. Total. Spoken language in the language that the person understands, paired with signs that are also in the language that the person understands. So if they get one, if they miss one, they get the other. That's why total communication is used for people who new sign language only, and then maybe they got hearing from a cochlear implant, and they're evolving from their visual sign language understanding of their own language into spoken language of whatever language they're choosing. So when you transition from speaking your home language, if it's Hindi or Tamil or Swedish or whatever it is, right, into English, there is a transition that you have to make. And total communication is what helps make the transition from a physical sign language gesture system. Because whether you are using American Sign Language, none of you are. You're using the one you made up in your family. You're using your family's version. Your child asks you for things with their give me gesture, every one of them in a different way. Some of them do this, some of them hold their hand, some of them point, some of them bang on things. They all do their own if they're nonverbal, and you know it. So this is the strategy to turn all of that into the spoken language that you need, right? So let's see. All right, I've got some questions coming in, and I promise I'm going to get to them at the end because I've got another one, but I have to get to this next strategy because it is the most important, and you're going to see some real examples, because what you always see isn't actually always, you don't always say the same thing every time you see the same behavior, is what I wanted to say. Okay, so what happens is, that's what I was just talking about, how you are the one, because you're there in the environment, in the situation, in that event, where you know what your child is trying to communicate with you. You know what they're trying to say. And nobody else does, or maybe people do. It just depends on the environment, right? So what I have here is some examples. Over here on the left, I'm going to pretend this is a child on the playground, right? Okay, because I've just got a mom here. I just want to show this video, but this is real common kid behavior. They'll jump up and down and wave at you, and you are not close by. So here are ways that you can interpret. This is literally an interpretation and or response to the gestures that are already happening. So the first thing is, she says, "Hi, I'm so happy to see you." That's me literally interpreting what that person's saying, okay? Here's another thing that I'm interpreting, what they're thinking. You are really excited to see me. I have guessed that thought, and I have projected it in a spoken language full sentence. Here's the next thing that I've done. I'm assuming that they're doing that thing because she's smiling. I'm assuming she's having fun. So now I'm going to say another sentence that says, "Wow, jumping and waving feels so fun." Because obviously she's thinking jumping and waving feels so fun. I'm excited to do that, right? If you can't identify any other reason your child is jumping and waving, you can say something like that. If you see your child, like they're literally in the park standing next to the slide, getting your attention, then you are again interpreting what they want. You want me to watch you on the slide. So this is in case it's a request and not just a greeting, like, "Hey, I'm happy to see you." Maybe this jumping up and down is a request, and you'll know because you're in the situation. And you'll say, "Hey, you want me to watch you on the slide?" And so then what you can say is your response to that communication. "Oh, I'm so excited to watch you now. Okay, let me come watch you." Right? So it worked. This nonverbal communication worked for this person because I interpreted it in 5 different ways. And that's language facilitation, okay? Here's example number 2 with this little boy who's literally pointing, okay? He could be saying, if there is a robot, we're on the other end of that, "Look at that cool robot," because I'm standing there, I see the robot, I see him looking at the robot. It's easy for me to interpret, "Look at that cool robot." That's one of the things he could be thinking. Here's the other thing. Maybe the treats are there up on the top shelf, and he's looking at the treats, and he's kind of looking at me. "Oh, you want me to get you your treat up there," because that's the treat that I know and he knows that we put up there earlier, right? Again, you would know this situation. Here's another one. "It's time for us to go catch the bus." Maybe the kid's looking at the clock, and he knows that when the big hand's on the 12 and the little hand's on the 7, that it's time to go to the bus. And that's why it's time to go. And maybe that's what he's saying. So you want to say that's what he's thinking. So I'm saying it out loud. Here's another thing. You want the candy from the top shelf. I'm saying maybe I offered one on the bottom, and you say, no, I don't want that one. I want that one up there on the top. I don't want want the one that you told me. And that's another thing that I could interpret from this gesture. And here's another one. Okay, now my response. All right, let me see what you're looking at. I see you pointing at something. Let me come over there and join you in that behavior so that I can experience what you're experiencing, and then we can talk about it more. Let me come look at that. All of those sentences are giving your child something to understand while they're experiencing this experience about it that is language that they could use later, because these experiences, jumping up and down and waving and pointing and smiling at something, that happens all day, every day in families. Every family. If it's not jumping up and down and waving, your child has another way that they get your attention and get you to look at them and get you to follow them and get you to do their stuff, you know? And then you can use all those phrases that I gave you and make up your own that involve your interpretation of those gestures. This is how, the secret way, the real way, to use nonverbal gestures and signs as a language facilitation tool. Use it as I call it the golden egg. Whenever your child brings you a message nonverbally, you have the opportunity right then to interpret that message. So, all right, let's talk about really quick. Hey, Vanessa. She says, love this video. Thank you. Hey, Vanessa. I'm so happy to have you here now. All right, let's see. We've got some questions in here. I want to, though, let me look at Prika's. Okay, so that one's a diagnosis question. I'm going to get to that one at the end. Because first, I want to talk about this question. And that is one that I got when I posted a little reminder video yesterday about this. And this came from Janice, who has a 27-year-old. She told me in a follow-up comment. But she says, my son can definitely get out more vocalization when he signs a word, even though his ability to vocalize is very limited. He can also get out more vocalization when he sings, especially when he sings along, and when he echoes a person or his AAC device. His device is saying, like, I want whatever, and he's chiming in is basically what those are. It's kind of called choral reading, sort of that way. Without one of these three scaffolds, he hardly succeeds at vocalizing at all. So he is really using these things, right? I'm not sure if singing helps prompt vocalization with most kids, but it always has for my son. And it's true that that's what happens, unfortunately, when you learn to use these AAC devices and signs as a alternative to speech, right? So I don't know the physical circumstance around that person's ability to talk. However, neurologically, there's nothing wrong with the motor systems for the speech to be able to make the sound. In fact, the person has said, 27 years old, sung potentially the whole song at one point or another, but it gets stuck. It's kind of like the mechanism goes and then it's stuck and goes and then it's stuck and goes and it's stuck. And that to me is an indication of prompt dependence. That's why we see a lot of ups and downs in a lot of spoken language, especially with older kids, because they have been, remember, it's a big power struggle about communication in a family with a late talking person. That you have to have a sustainable family language. How do I know when my child needs things? How do I know? Basically, that's the main thing. How do I know how to keep them safe and well and fed and happy? And we do the best we can. He shows me, her 27-year-old, they've worked with all these different methods. And when you separate the therapy, and that's kind of what I want anybody who's in those situations to do, is just really separate any of the therapy that you've had right up until now and how your child learned the things they learned. Because what you have to do is you have to really make a complete paradigm shift and go back to the strategies like I've talked about here, where there is no set response. When your child comes to you, you do X. That's not how language facilitation works. If you want it to be your child's response, it cannot be prompted in any way. What it has to be is demonstrated, modeled, reinforced, and encouraged. And you have to model it repetitively. And you have to model it in the right moment when your child is receptive to receiving that model. And you have to model it without any expectation of result. The problem with older late talkers is the responses that you see are usually prompted, answering a question, following a direction, something like that. And when a person wants to communicate their own ideas, all they have, because remember, that's the tool that was given to them, is the sign, or in this kid's, he's got a handful of one and a handful of another and a handful of another. He knows a few phrases. He has access to this device that he can touch any button he wants at 27 and talk to anybody else. So he's learned to use it as a crutch, which is necessary because he hasn't been able to memorize and label all the things that are in his computer device. That was too difficult to process at 27 years old. You cannot possibly memorize every word, especially when you have technology available. I wouldn't even be able to do it. Nobody could do it, let alone somebody who has anxiety about communication, because that's what happens. Remember, outside of your family life, in your world, they have to communicate with other people elsewhere. And those devices and these signs, the same sign, every time you want something, do this, isn't going to work for anybody except for the people who are in on the game, who are in on the training. Because your child's going to take out is made up language that you created for them, not the real spoken language, because you're using these other things as a tool, and not using anything functional for them to take elsewhere, because you're training them how to use it with you and the people around you only. And so it's not helpful to train them into spoken language. If your child can talk and they are saying things on their own, 2-word phrases, then this will work for you if you stop prompting your child to do other things. So you need to start modeling more. And I suspect by 27, you gave up these models a long, long time ago, and you relied on your child to learn as they learn, through devices, through their classes, through their whatever. And you're not teaching them things like how to cook and how to do laundry and how to do those things. If you are, those are your opportunities to facilitate the spoken language with your child. These devices and sign language are not part of the previous knowledge, is not part of your current, your moving forward. You have to abandon all of it. You have to change completely, okay? So if your child is prompt dependent in any way, spoken language paired with whatever they were using before might be necessary. But again, your speech models have to be way above and beyond these single words. If you ever want more than these single words, where will they learn it if they don't hear it from you? Okay? So signs and gestures as a communication crutch are not recommended. I do not recommend them. I recommend signs and gestures as a visual attention grabber and a visual listening tool to facilitate auditory listening, which is what is necessary for spoken language development. These are not deaf children who need to learn an alternative way, visual way to communicate. They can talk. They are learning to talk. All of your folks will. All of your folks will. Okay? All right, listen. This is a good, interesting question. Okay, since it is related. When there is an auditory processing problem and a person can't follow syntax or understand how to use the little words in language, do you think that it's helpful to sign every word in a sentence to help them at least hear the sentence structure and hope that learning to hear the sentence will help them in the sentence structures? I'm thinking about different speaking people using AAC. Most people model language the same way you're signing, speaking, right? Okay, so I know that was kind of a long and fast to put in there, but I don't want to dwell too long on this. The reality is, if your child has an auditory processing problem, the only thing that is going to help them learn to say all of the little words, in, on, and put it in the hamper, is by repetitive, super slow spoken language models in context. So your phrases, your prepositional phrases in the hamper, when you are doing laundry, shirt in the hamper, socks in the hamper. While your hands are busy putting the things in, your spoken language models should be plenty to help that auditory processing system. You, in fact, do not want to add another visual language situation in there to distract them away from it. You can do it in printed word. People do it in printed word because when you are writing out a sentence, all the little words are there. All the little words are said when you say a sentence. In these sign language, unless you are teaching your child, you want them to sign every little part of every little word. That's teaching them an alternative spoken language. So I do not recommend auditory processing. This is even more necessary and helpful because they don't have good listening. They have visual listening. They're using their visual listening on fleek, better than average, especially if they have auditory processing concerns. So these gestures, functional gestures in the moment with slower spoken language models is what's going to help you, because the only real thing that's going to help an auditory processing system evolve and change and use the neuroplasticity to develop it into a highly functioning auditory processing system is listening practice, not visual learning. Only listening practice, repetitive listening practice to functional, slow, easy to understand language models. That's what's going to help. Okay. All right. So let's see. We've got a lot of good. By the way, everybody, please like this video if you're watching. Thank you so much. What a great topic today. Some really nice comments too, as I see. Like I said, Rima says, I like the expression visual listening. And that's really what we are facilitating with all of these, visual listening. A lot of nice, hi, everybody. Is sign language needed when kids are saying two-word sentences? We talked about that. So Priya has a question, though. It was a big diagnosis. Yeah, here we go. So my child is 6 years old, went for a diagnosis, doesn't have any behavioral issues. Just because he's not sitting in the classes for long activities, they concluded he's mildly on the spectrum. And we asked for a second opinion. They told it's a spectrum thing. If he improves, this label will go away. I'm not happy about this. They're not thinking in many ways, whether kids has anxiety or other. And what should I do now? Shall I continue to facilitate without thinking this diagnosis? So that's a great question, Priya. And the answer to that question is there is no diagnosis necessary. There is no diagnosis necessary for language facilitation. None. Your child can be the most chatty little 2-year-old on the planet, and language facilitation will help evolve their spoken language so that they can be valedictorian of the high school, right? Every parent should be using language facilitation with their kids, okay? And especially if your child seems to be stuck in nonverbal learning, nonverbal communication. They don't want to learn to talk. They're avoiding you. They don't want to. There are these reasons. There's these blockages that happen. They're either physical, environmental, or emotional, right? Can be one of those three things. If it's an auditory processing system, ear fluid, physical delay, like, prematurity. These are common early developmental delay causes. They're not permanent, they're just delays. And they happen because they're common childhood situations, right? Very common childhood situations. If your child has had any kind of a physical situation with their body that they've had to recover from, heal, okay? If they fell down and skinned their knee, I'm telling you, even that, right? They had a cold, they got COVID, whatever, right? They have a recovery period from those things. And what happens during recovery period from illnesses is bad habits go into place. And sometimes those bad habits stay. and then parents get off task and the development doesn't happen. And then parents are concerned that there's actually something wrong when it isn't. It's just bad habits that happen from that period of time. So Priya, there probably are bad habits that have established in your household. They all happen. They happen to all of us because remember, all of these lay talkers, they have had to teach you how to understand them for their whole lives from the time they were born. And the older they get, the more complex that looks. The more complex your environment is. So, right, we talked about physical, then there's your environment. Everyone's environment's changing now. Everyone. Because the seasons change, because the weather changes, right? It doesn't have to be a massive scale. It can happen in your life. New baby coming. Dad got a new job. We're struggling for money. Any of those things in your environment affect you. And everything you do, 100% of what you do, how you sleep, how you eat, how you take care of yourself, what you cook, how you keep your household, all of those things affect your child. All of them. Every single one. Every single one. And they're there. They're part of your family. They're learning. They're observing. They're using their visual listening to get any information that will help them. And that's why you want to understand how important you are in this process, that your visual aids, your gestures, everything you show your child, teach your child, help your child understand through your visual aids and your combination of slow, steady, full sentences that make sense to your child in the moment, that are about what you are experiencing together and not what you're thinking in your head, about what you're seeing your child doing and your interpretation of those communication behaviors. Because, as I always say, all behavior is communication, all of it. So hopefully that was able to answer you. Let's see. I'm not seeing any more comments, just a lot of really nice. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let me show you really quick all 5 of these strategies one more time. I've got them listed here on a slide to use for using signs and gestures in the right way to facilitate speech, right? Physical touch before you talk facilitates that visual attention. So it's going to get you started. Hey, I'm talking to you. I want to communicate with you. Touch them first. Model communication signs that everyone can understand, even if you got to make them up yourself. Some of them might be true signs from American Sign Language because they look just like things, but you really want to use signs that everyone can understand. And so you want to always combine your gestures and signs that you see, that you do anyway, with emotional statements to facilitate speech about feelings. And then you want to include gestures with your directions, of course, to facilitate increased vocabulary. I want you to talk about this color and that thing and in the box and where it goes and out and under and all of that stuff. Use your gestures with those things to help get those little words if you're auditory processing problem. And then number 5, always, always, always pair gestures and signs that you see, that you do, that you observe in your environment. Somebody goes like this, Daddy's upset. He doesn't know what to do. When you see them, talk about them. That's the other way that you use these gestures, this interpretation, this number 5 slide that I did where I showed the lady jumping up and down. That's really what is going to benefit you because it is the visual listening, the interpretation of the idea that they see in the real world compared to what's going on in their mental world, listening to the soundtrack, right, of the words and phrases, the actual ones that come out at the same time. And you got to do it over and over and over again, 2 to 3 hours every single day. And yeah, maybe 5 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 2 minutes there. As you keep doing it, I'm telling you what, over the next week, watch yourself. Increase your gestures and your combining gestures with sentences just for a week, and you will see a difference in your child's listening and even their potential. What's going to happen is they're going to start using more gestures themselves, right? They won't replace it long term. They're going to join you, just like that mom said her child is comfortable joining in choral the other things. So if you are the one that's saying those things while your child's doing it, they don't have to wait for a sign or create one themselves. You are creating it for them. They will start to join you. And if it works with their devices and their signs, why wouldn't you want them to try and practice it over and over and over and over and over again? So it sticks. So provide them with those models all the time. And it has to be not what you're thinking. It has to be what he's thinking. Because at 27, it could be like, I'm really annoyed by you right now. I mean, who knows what's going on at 27 years of thinking in your head, right? You as parents can understand how to do it. Bring it out. Show them in gestures. Tell your child with your actions that you want to help them learn to shift these nonverbal communications into speech, and they're going to be with you. Because I'll tell you what, speech is a lot easier. It's a lot easier and a lot more effective than trying to get somebody to guess what you do by pantomiming. And so once, if your kid's doing that, which if they're over 4 years old, they definitely are. They're pantomiming through things, trying to get you to recreate things that they're trying to create. They're trying to get you to do stuff. They're triggering you. If you're prompting your child, they're prompting you. If you're questioning your child, they're questioning you. They're not saying words, but they're mirroring. They're mirroring your behavior. When you provide gestures, they're going to start doing a lot more gestures, and that's okay. Because all communication, if you're using gestures everybody can understand, guess what? You're automatically making their communication more effective. Even if it's not all spoken language, it's more effective about their experiences and communicating their experiences. That's what this is about. It's not about perfect speech. It's about being able to share your wisdom with the world, with everybody in the world. And everybody in your world is going to understand spoken language with these gestures a lot better than spoken language alone or gestures alone. And total communication is what we're going for here, right? So hopefully that explains everything. And on that note, I am going to get out of here. I really appreciate everybody's comments and all of that today. Make sure if you want to learn more about how to become a language facilitator, you can check out my book. I'm on Facebook and MeWe and YouTube, and I have parent coaching programs where I can teach you exactly in your life how to interpret the things that your child is doing and turn your child's behavior into spoken language. If you have trouble doing it on your own, I can help you do it in my programs. So that is what I do. So yeah, thanks again for joining me, everybody. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends. This is a really, really big one that's going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much, and I will see you all soon on my next video. Bye for now.